Okay, let's look at our next one. Nice contrary motion there. Let's look at it again. We have another contrary motion example. So we're going up by a step, down by a leap, but that's okay. Let's slide over. So contrary motion gets us to here. Here we have more contrary motion. Okay, now we have something a little different. We kind of have no motion, right? Because this one stays the same and this one goes down. So it's not contrary motion because this one would have to go up for it to be contrary motion. It stays still. We call this oblique motion. So this is another one. So this is allowed. So oblique motion means one part is not moving. It's either repeating the note or sustaining the note. And another part is moving by step, skip, or leap. All three are okay in this case. Now, the one thing about oblique motion is that it's allowed, but it's not great. So it should be avoided, but it can be done. So we're going to call this okay. It's allowed, but it's kind of naughty, but that's okay. In other words, you should avoid oblique motion if you can, but if you can't, it's okay. It's still going to sound okay. What do we have next? Up and down, we have another contrary motion. And last, we're going up to a unison and down to a unison. So that's another contrary motion. Okay, so we've hit 3 of the 4 in this little counterpoint. We've hit contrary motion, a lot of contrary motion. We've hit parallel motion, and we've hit oblique motion. The one we haven't found in this is called similar motion. And that's where things move. Let me just try to make one really quick here. So okay. Here's a case of similar motion. We have the same direction of motion, but at a different interval. So this one is up by a leap, and this one is up by a skip. Okay, so this is up by a third, this one's up by a fifth. That's called similar motion. It's allowed as long as you don't land on a perfect fifth here. So we have B and G, so we didn't land on a fifth. If we landed on a fifth, it's also allowed. It's just that they want you to approach it. The upper voice needs to be by step. So if it lands on a fifth, you need to be sure your upper voice is a step either up or down. And if it's down, this one would need to be down as well, like something like that. So there are special rules regarding landing on perfect intervals. But that's similar motion. Basically, it's moving in the same direction but by different intervals. So of the 4, contrary motion counts for most situations because anytime you're moving in opposite directions, it's contrary motion. If you're moving in the same direction, it's either parallel motion, similar motion, or oblique motion. And just to review those really quick, parallel motion means you're moving in the same direction and going from the same interval to the same interval, right? So from a third to a third, everything's moving up by a third. Similar motion means you're moving in the same direction but at different intervals. And oblique motion means that one voice is not moving and the other one is moving. Okay, so those are our 4 types of motion that we can have, and this is kind of how we label them, like this. So you'll see that I put the type of motion labeled down here in between the 2 intervals, and obviously there's not one at the very beginning because this is not motion. It's got to go between 2 notes for there to be motion. Okay, up next, let's talk a little bit more about this perfect interval business and what results in landing on perfect intervals.